Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whichever part of the world and whatever time zone you're joining us from. Welcome. Welcome to the 2022 edition of the Black Consciousness Festival, where we're focusing on healing and reconnection. The Black Consciousness Festival is a global platform that connects people of African descent with each other by sharing and encouraging exchange through information, traditions, histories, intentions, traumas, celebrations, legacies, stories connecting to pride, power, and practice. Our inaugural year was in 2020, where we created a month of conversations and activities around topics of Black consciousness. In 2021, we had a few events: a youth festival, a weekend of conversations on reparations, and in November, conversations on shift, as we explored the many ways in which we, as people of African descent, shared and rebirthed elements of ourselves. The recordings of all these conversations are available on our website, theblackconsciousnessfestival.com, and our YouTube channel. As you listen to the conversations, we encourage you to be kind to yourself. Pause, breathe consciously, move, and appreciate all that you are. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. Enjoy.
An African Elegy by Ben Okri. We are the miracles that God made to taste the bitter fruit of time. We are precious, and one day our suffering will turn into the wonders of the earth. There are things that burn me now, which turn golden when I am happy. Do you see the mystery of our pain? That we bear poverty and are able to sing and dream sweet things. And that we never curse the air when it is warm, or the fruit when it tastes so good, or the lights that bounce gently on the waters. We bless things even in our pain. We bless them in silence. That is why our music is so sweet. It makes the air remember. There are secret miracles at work that only time will bring forth. I too have heard the dead singing, and they tell me that life is good. They tell me to live it gently, with fire, and always with hope. There is wonder here, and there is surprise. In everything, the unseen moves. The ocean is full of songs. The sky is not an enemy. Destiny is our friend. Welcome. Welcome to this closing ceremony for the 2022 edition of the Black Consciousness Festival. It seems as if the days flew. You know, we started on Thursday, today is Sunday, we finished now. And as we close, again, I want to take the opportunity to say some thank yous, some thank yous to the members of the board of directors of the Black Consciousness Festival, really the steering committee for the festival, because it's a working board, as we know. I want to thank Kieran and the Heroes Foundation. Kieran is the man. And so we thank him for his presence, his laughter, the ease with which we're able to work with him. I want to thank Lee Lutchman again for the awesome graphics, Journey for her support, and everyone else. I don't think I'm forgetting anyone else, but certainly I should be thanking everyone who said yes to being part of the conversation. our conversation leads and our participants who came from all over. It was a pleasure to hear the conversation, the richness, to see them. And we look forward to your continuing with us. So I'm going to ask at this time, I'm going to ask Nicholas Ward, our young member of the board, who is with us, keeping us on our toes most times, to do a poem for us.
Talk by Kwame Dawes for August Wilson. No one quarrels here. No one has learned the yell of discontent. Instead, here in Sumter, we learn to grow silent, build a stone of resolve, learn to nod, learn to close in the flame of shame and anger in our hearts, learn to petrify it so, and the more we quiet our ire, the heavier the stone. This alchemy of concrete in the vein, the sludge of affront, until even that will calcify, and the heart at last will stop, unassailable, unmovable, adamant. Find me a man who will stand on a blasted hill and shout. Find me a woman who will break into shouts, who will let loose a river of lament. Find the whole of the Spirit, teach us the tongues of the angry, so that our blood, my pulse, our hearts flow with the warm healing of anger. You, August, have carried in your belly every song of affront your characters have spoken, and maybe you waited too long to howl against the night, but each evening on some wooden stage, these men and women learn to sing songs lost for centuries, learn the healing of talk, the calming of quarrel, the music of contention, and in this cacophonic chorus, we find the ritual of living.
Thank you, Nicholas. And today is the day, Black Consciousness Day in Brazil. Ojia, Sean, da, da Consciência Negra. So, this was the day that gave rise to this festival, the idea around Black consciousness in Brazil in 2020. And it is such a beautiful thing that, we're closing the festival on the actual day. And a good part of the day, we had some, a few of our friends from Brazil having some interesting conversations, beautiful conversations on healing, and talking about the significance of what the day means. So we're going to talk a bit about that. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk a bit about some of the conversation in the festival and what next. Yeah. So I know Sean is going to share with us about Zumbi.
Sure. Thanks for that, Erica. So, Ujia da Consciência Negra. Erica, you did very well.
Thank you.
Ujia da Consciência Negra, or Black Consciousness Day in Brazil, is celebrated on November 20th. It was only in the 2000s when the current elected President Lula, the last time he was in government, he had kind of made it a good idea. He couldn't force states, because it's kind of similar to the United States, where each state has their own control of certain things. He couldn't force states to. He didn't want to make it a federal holiday, but he suggested that states could make it a holiday in their own territories, and some states have it as a holiday still, and some states don't. But to get to the story, and why it's the 20th of November. So it's the 20th of November because it is meant to commemorate and remember one particular character in Brazil's history and the day he was captured and killed, right? And this man was a living man. His name was Zumbi. He was born in Brazil, actually, in 1655. And they say, some documents say he was born free, but he was taken care of or adopted by a Catholic priest and taught Portuguese and Latin and how to be an altar server and whatnot. But eventually he ran away and joined the Quilombo dos Palmares. And a Quilombo is basically the same as a maroon settlement in some other places. The word Quilombo comes from the Angolan Bantu language, the Kimbundu language. And basically a Quilombo was a free society. existing within colonial Brazil, right? And it was located in northeast Brazil, somewhere between the current state of Bahia and Alagoas, they say. Some interesting things about Zumbi that I think are important for people to know. He was an expert in capoeira, and he took that knowledge to train others. The military of Palmares, which was the name of the Quilombo, was known to be absolute experts in capoeira and used capoeira in their military tactics. He was a respected military strategist, in spite of the fact that he probably wasn't educated to be in the military. And some interesting things about the Quilombo, which he eventually became the leader of. When he joined the Quilombo of Palmares, he was not the leader. The current leader was a man called Ganga Zumba, but he eventually became the leader much later on. But some interesting things about the Quilombo is that many times when we hear talk about African freedom fighters in the Americas, it's kind of mentioned in passing, and there isn't much discussion and much reverence paid around it. But this space, this Quilombo called Palmares, was, they say, according to an author called Braudel in Brazil, perhaps the size of Portugal, right?
Wow.
So it was a huge space. The population was over 30,000 people who had escaped from plantations and had gone to live in this space. And by 1630, so in the 17th century, it was described as the promised land for anybody who wanted to escape from the institution of slavery. And in terms of its military prowess, Palmares had kept the Portuguese off for 67 years of fighting. Yeah. And it was only by 1695 that there are many stories about how it happened. Some people say that a rival Quilombo that had been captured by the Portuguese sold them out. Some people said that, it was other things that were happening. But eventually the Portuguese raided the Quilombo of Palmares, and they captured everybody, including Zumbi. And on November 20th, 1695, is when he was captured and killed. And his head is said to have been shipped to a city nearby called Recife and displayed in the central square. I mean, it's awful the way it was done. But they say that the Portuguese claimed that the reason why they did it that way was to prove that he was not immortal, because there were lots of discussions about him being immortal, and how could he have been, an African man born in this place who could achieve so much. Those kinds of things we still hear up until today. And also to warn other African resistance fighters about what could possibly happen to them. But up until today, he is a hero and freedom fighter, considered a hero and freedom fighter in Brazil. If you go to the city of Salvador, there's statues of him all over. In the state where Palmares was said to be, in Alagoas, their international airport, is named after him in the city of Maceió. And there have been films, and numerous films and songs and all sorts of things dedicated to him. So he is a major figure in Brazilian history and culture and understanding of who they are.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sean. And we give thanks for Zumbi and all of the other resistance fighters or ancestors who laid this path for us. And so we can talk a bit about this. What does this mean for us here in this, Janelle? What does this mean for us 300 years later?
Yes.
How do you see this? Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I sit with it, it will almost fertilize. It can make you grow, right? To just sit with this information, to just listen to Sean, I can almost feel myself, like your spine lengthening and you stretching, because 300 years is not a long time. It really isn't. And to just really embrace what just occurred.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing when we speak about prehistoric times, right? But 300 years ago was literally, right? It wasn't a very long time ago. And so to just embrace that, it brings me joy. To be honest with you, I'm not so much focused on the story and what occurred that was negative or painful, but to consider the circumstances and what the outcome was, regardless, right? Or despite, right? So to not focus on the lack, but to really focus on the fulfillment. That's what one person could have done in their lifetime,
Yeah.
what they could have accomplished. That would mean that each day he was moving, whether he was moving in his spirit, moving mentally, emotionally, there was an ongoing shift that had to be going on with him. There was no time. There was no time to just sit back. There was no time to ignore. He was constantly acting. And again, whether the actions were displayed physically or it was actions mentally, spiritually, right? But there was a constant movement and progress. And that is wonderful. Wonderful. What a story. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Erica, it reminds me of that thing that we saw on Instagram recently, where the lady was saying, "Play no games. We don't play any."
Yeah. With a straight face, eh? Serious, you know. When I saw that show, like Janelle is saying, my back straightened. Eh? She was, you know, coming at you seriously. It was like,
Yeah,
straighten up, get your
yeah,
act together. What are you doing with your life and your time and all of that, you know?
basically,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
She was like, "Play. We don't have time to play games."
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's basically what Janelle is saying. I mean,
Mhm.
Yes.
as people of African descent, we have so much has been done already by our ancestors because where we sit today in 2022 is a far cry from where many of our ancestors sat recently and the ones who, the first ones who came from Africa, where what they would have met when they got to the Americas. It's a far, far cry. So a lot has been done and we give thanks for that, but there's still a lot to be done. So we don't have time to play games.
No, no. And you know what? It continues, right? Because it's a part of our DNA, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
the action, right? It might look a little different today.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I won't say no. I'm not sure if the beheading has has discontinued. I don't know, right?
No,
Yeah, it
But
hasn't.
it hasn't.
but our current day young men, black men, they too are warriors.
Hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
too are warriors in their time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It might look different,
Yeah,
but
using different tools. Yeah.
using
Mm-hmm.
different tools, right? But I'm also in a place where, while I totally understand that my ancestors were enslaved, there's so much more about them that I would like to discuss.
Hmm.
And there's
Mm-hmm.
so much talent and um, royalty about them. And that's what I like to tap into. And that's what
Yeah.
I like to focus on. And so this man was a true warrior,
Hmm.
a true warrior. If I could close my eyes and envision this statuesque, you know, uh, just the strength. And again, not just physically, but mentally. I don't know what it was like when he was going to sleep at night.
Mm.
Those moments before he fell to sleep. What was it like for him? What was he
Hmm.
thinking? What was he feeling?
Mm-hmm.
How was his heart beating?
Mm-hmm.
Mm?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when we think back at what occurred before our time, to
Mm-hmm.
reflect on the energy that there must
Yes.
have been. Yes, there
Yeah.
was sorrow, disappointment, and pain, but
Hmm.
there may have been, I imagine there had to be bouts of rejoicing.
Definitely.
you know, because we've become kind of
Yes.
negative. We've become a little negative, right?
Yeah.
We've
Mm-hmm.
become a little negative. But I want to believe that that there had to be some rejoicing
Mm-hmm.
in the midst of all that pain. Otherwise, how would you continue?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think we've heard a lot of that over this weekend, Erica. We've heard
Yes.
a lot of people talk about, historically, holding on to our ancestors, holding on to the things that rooted them
Mm-hmm.
as people of African descent, right?
Mm-hmm.
The music that is so fundamental to who we are as a people, the rhythm,
Yes.
the rituals,
Yeah.
our understanding of how the universe is made up and how it works, all
Oh,
of these
yes.
things,
Yeah.
if you stop to think of, there was a film recently that I watched about the Haitian Revolution in Haiti, and they were talking about the fact that the average person of African descent born into slavery in Haiti would have been dead by age 16 because of
Mm-hmm.
the cruelty of the system. And
Mm-hmm.
then when we had watched Enslaved, the documentary that was
Yes.
done by Samuel L. Jackson, they said
Mm-hmm.
for those Africans who were trafficked from Africa to the Americas, their average lifespan was no more than 10 years after touching down in the Americas. If you
Mm-hmm.
start to think about what their daily reality would have been like, waking up at 6 in the morning, going to bed past 6 in the afternoon, having very little to eat, very little clothing, just really difficult conditions. You could imagine how important it was um, to have things that could carry you through that, could carry you
Yeah.
across that, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's one of the things I think about. I remembered before when you would say, celebrate, I would be like, how could you celebrate this day? But
Mm.
now it's a different mindset. You understand, that this is who we are. So we have to celebrate it because it is not the only thing that happened. As Janelle is saying, so many beautiful things came out of it. And what I like to coming through from hearing Sean and thinking about it, I want to believe that they believe in their freedom.
Mm.
Nobody had to give them freedom. Yes, they were enslaved, but they believed in their freedom. And that, was one of the things that, kept them going because they understood that, coming back to something we had talked about yesterday, that divinity within them, because that's part of the African cosmology,
Mm.
that there's no disconnect from who we are, in terms of our beliefs, our rituals, our divinity. And I want to feel that is one of the things that would have kept them
Mm.
going, that sense of I am free in spite of the chains that are on me. Nobody could take that freedom from me. And so for me today, it's one of the things we have to consider. Do we
Mm.
really see ourselves as being free, or have we trapped ourselves into this thing?
Mm. I mean, it's a part of, um, I guess, how we become negative, and just the
Yeah.
human race, right? In being dissatisfied or
Mm-hmm.
having just this sort of malcontent uh,
Mm-hmm.
about everything. We never have enough. So
Yeah.
we view everything from a place of lack instead of a place of abundance, right? And so, how do we get ourselves to realize that we shouldn't despise the lack, right? Don't despise the lack, but to still be recognizing of abundance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm making sense,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's so much to be grateful for, right?
Yes.
Even in this period right now where, we're calling it post-pandemic, right? And many of us have eased right back into where we were before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
We are currently living in a time immediately after hundreds of thousands of people died within months, right? immediately after, and it's not even totally after, but let's just say, right, for now, immediately after, should we not be jolly? Like, what? Hey,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
hey,
Like
Yeah.
that we
everybody
are
should be,
alive. We are alive
everybody
to tell
should
the
be having
story.
Christmas parties.
Yeah.
Listen.
And it's not a vacuous kind of jolliness, eh? It's a jolliness which comes from that place of knowing that, hey, I have so
Yes,
much to be grateful for. I'm alive. This
yes,
place has so much magic and so much beauty, and I'm part
yes,
of it.
yes.
Yes.
So, do we see the injustice? Yes. Do we see the
Yes.
lack? Yes. Do we see the global warning? Yes. Do we see our corrupt leaders, world leaders? Yes. But you know what? I see Erica, I see Sean. I see Erica, I see Sean, right? And so there's energy right there. There's a positive energy right there. And there's a healing that comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
There really is. But it's an ongoing healing that's required, right? You don't
Yeah.
just heal and then you're done. No.
Nope.
It's every
You,
day.
It's
it's
every
every
day.
day. It's every day. Because
Every
you can
second of the day.
every second. Because you can continue to be triggered, right?
Mm-hmm.
We still have COVID, right?
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, all of us have, we've experienced COVID for ourselves. Some of us have had it to the point where everyone knew. Some of us had it to the point where we didn't even tell anyone, but we had a feeling that's what we had because we know we were coughing and we know how we were feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've had symptoms and so on, or loss of taste, or whatever.
Um,
So it has touched all of us, and we are alive to tell the story.
But
Yeah.
I wanted to also add another angle to what Erica was talking about freedom. One of the things, well, to me, freedom is one of the many different things that are part of what makes us human, right? Our humanity. And I think that humanity, as Erica was saying, in spite of all that our ancestors went through and that we might be going through, it's important for us to really focus on and understand what that humanity means, right? And what are the things that make us human. And part of that is what you were talking about, the joy, just recognizing that in spite of the things that we might not have, there's so much else that we do have, right? Which is life and health and family members and somewhere to live and food to eat, and the list goes on. So it's really that understanding of who we are as human beings.
And also freedom to have experiences.
Mm-hmm.
When you see a baby, you smile, that's an experience.
Yes.
That's an experience, right? Or when you lock eyes with a stranger and you smile at the same time and you don't know why, but you just do.
Yeah.
Because there's just this thing that happens.
Yes. Yes.
It's the human connection. And in that too is healing, right? Because in that moment, nothing else matters but that baby smile, that cute face, right? And so it's the freedom to have experiences, right? To see people, to really see them.
Oh, Bona, we heard that
Mhm.
today. I
Mhm.
see you.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I also think of Sankofa, that conversation this morning, I think it was with Christian dos Santos, talk about looking back at our past and building new possibilities for future. And what came through in those Brazilian conversations, the one I heard, was that thing about tapping back into our African heritage and how they live their lives with that as part of who they are in Brazil. The rituals. So in the last conversation, the person was talking about the ear, was
Mhm.
talking about the healing which comes through knowing your ancestors and tapping into the orishas who are there waiting and who would provide you with the knowledge, the healing herbs, all of those things. She talked about a simple thing. When you go to a hospital to have your baby, and wanting to have the African experience of that, because there's a way African women give birth. You know, one woman might want to have the placenta because, you know, you bury the placenta, it's not going into any incinerator. So all of those things that we can tap back into, which will be part of our own healing experiences, because we recognize, and you know, it came through so much today, there are different ways of knowing. There are different ways of knowing, and our ways of knowing, and I'm saying our African, you know, cosmology, it's as valuable as any other.
Yes.
And therefore, we have to know and to own and to not be afraid to embrace and to practice and ask for what we need.
Mm.
You know, and we can only ask if we know, you know. So we
Yes.
have to get familiar and ask for what we need, because we know what are the healing elements for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I
Absolutely.
remember she talked about the food as well, you know, some of the things you eat, you know, all of those things are you know, tapping back, you know, to come forward, taking that medicine, that sweetness, that magic out of what we have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I really enjoy, you know, being in spaces with other people.
Yeah.
And really, I'm an introvert, you know.
You
So
are.
what? So I like being by myself, but
I find that very hard to believe.
what? I'll send you documentation, proof and documentation. But even though I enjoy my alone time, I get energy from being around other people.
Yeah.
And so once I get filled up, then I go back into my space. And then when I feel, oh my God, come back out and get something. And so a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I went to this gospel concert here at the Barclays Center. And oh my gosh, it was amazing. You know, just to look out at the stadium and see people, all races, ages. The MC for the night, at one point, he was recognizing, you know, folks of different ages, and you know, he was making jokes, you know, people in their 30s or their 40s, and you know, at one point he said, oh, you know, the folks in the 50s who are wearing heels and they know they're going to be sore tomorrow and whatever, right? But all there for one purpose, right, which was for worship, and it was just beautiful, just beautiful. So it's the human connection. Like we need one another.
Mm-hmm.
We really need one another. But we still have to ask questions, right? Not take everything at face value. So we have to ask questions and really dig deeper about anything that I guess seems like a norm, because not all norms are rooted in a way that is most beneficial
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have to not, you know, to not be afraid to question,
Mhm.
to question, to be disbelieving, to be skeptical, because our experiences tell us that that is how we should be, you know, not,
Mhm.
you know, on the other hand, not this, you know, distrusting, you know, ourselves, because that's part of the challenge, part of the healing we have to do as a collective, as a community, but really questioning what comes at us.
Yeah.
Question those narratives which we have been given.
Mhm.
You know, hearing a zombie story and knowing, you know, how that feels and what that means for you as an individual. Yeah.
Even if we're questioning, we could pick one or two sort of areas that we look out for. One of the areas that I look out for is entry, right? How did I get here? How did I get in this room? How did I get in this home? How did I get in this country, in this city, in this event? How did I get here? what was the criteria for me to be in this space, and who was left out, who was excluded, and why, and who made that decision.
Mhm.
Mm? So that we
Mhm.
always honor our own journey, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
also remember those who are left out.
Yeah. And I think also in there is asking to, how can I create space for others?
Yes.
So I'm there, but I'm not there just to be there for my own, I'm there
Mhm.
to create space for others, to open the door, to,
Yes.
to hear the voices which aren't heard traditionally
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
bring them in, bring them in. And I think that's my part of the healing, I think, for us as community,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
extending ourselves beyond ourselves. So I am not the CEO of something for me. There's a responsibility, I think, the community to open the door for others, to see others, to allow them to come in. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And that's going to take us a while to be able to do. So, um, looking at the last 4 days, there were some conversations. I think all of the conversations stood out because they all offered us some bits of healing, some bits of awareness building, building some more knowledge around ourselves, around our practices, around the things that are available to us. And the healing things, talking about food and healing, the importance of food for us, the importance of nutrition, the importance of knowing what we as people of African descent should be eating. And that came through in the food conversation, and it also came through in a couple of the Brazilian conversations today. You know, um,
Definitely.
yeah, the importance of drumming.
Hmm.
You know that the drum is in our DNA. So when we hear it, we're going to move.
Yeah. Yeah.
And therefore there's healing in that. I remembered when it's Jason was playing the heartbeat,
Hmm.
and I found that to be so, it was like, wow, that really sounds like a heartbeat. And then I begin to understand more how that drumming could be
Yes.
healing for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So the drumming, the food, the
But
movement.
even the use of voice, like the Mateus Alleluia, Feel You, and
Yes.
Iya today who was singing. We
Yes.
had several people who sang using the voice, and was it Louisa who said that as sometimes we take for granted what physiologically is required for us to sing. Um,
Yeah.
the vocal cords have to be ready.
Yes.
Your breathing has to be
Breath.
ready. Your lungs
Yes.
have to be ready. It
Yeah.
takes it takes many different parts of your physical body as well as your mind and your understanding of music and rhythm and all of that, which is an amazing process that we take for granted. So that
Yeah.
when singing happens, it really is a divine activity.
It's a divine activity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's something that came up in the conversation with Jamie and the young people in terms
Hmm.
of, healing the voice. Again, the breath came up because you have to know how to breathe to be able to voice and all of the different parts, as you're saying, that go together.
Hmm.
And I say, that's something which we have to get back to, to incorporate breathing consciously, being aware
Yeah.
of how we breathe so that we're able to speak up, to sing. And again, the courage to just use your voice, sing is yours. You don't have to have song like
Doesn't
thing,
have to be
you know.
perfect, no. Yeah.
No, it's because it's healing yourself when you
Yeah.
begin to sing, and I
Hmm.
don't know that we understand that. It's not just being like a Ruth or being like a, whoever. We can all sing,
Yeah.
So the thing is, we have so many tools available for us that we can use.
Yeah.
And making those tools part of our everyday life, and it's something I keep looking at with the Brazilians and admiring how they do it, how these tools are part of their day-to-day existences. It's not,
Mhm.
apart from, it is a part of.
Yeah. Well,
And
I think for them it's because the understanding or their closeness to Africa is a lot closer, is a lot stronger than some of us who are part of the diaspora. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's because of their history. Because Brazil was the last country to abolish the institution of slavery. And the Portuguese and Brazilians were very active in the transatlantic human trafficking of Africans to the Americas, so that there was a continuous injection of African culture and African cosmology and everything into their space. And so I think for them, that connection with Africa, culturally
yes.
speaking, spiritually speaking, etc., is still much more recent than for some other groups in the diaspora.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because, I look at how, in all of the songs they sing to all of the Orishas. The
Hmm.
altars, you remember Marianne de Castro, the altar is on stage as you're
Hmm.
performing, and it's
Hmm.
just part of what you do. Yeah.
It's a part of their life. I mean, like in Salvador, you've been Erica. The names of the Orishas and the understanding of the Orishas are everywhere. It's a part of everything. It's
Yeah,
normal.
people's houses, all of
Yeah,
those things. It's like, oh my God, wait, what is happening here?
yeah. Whereas in Trinidad, for example, I think it's still spoken with some level of taboo. And some people still think that it's not appropriate, or it's not normal. It's something that should be done in dark corners and
In
spaces.
darkened corners. And for those of us, some of us who, and I'm speaking, observing, looking in, as practitioners, it's not shared widely.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you know, you know. If you don't know, you just don't know because
But I,
it's my thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think a big part of that is a response to the legal and cultural prohibitions, right? So if they were demonized and discriminated against for a long time, which still happens in Brazil. I mean, the police, up until this year, I've read many news notices about the police raiding candomblé heroes and people getting beaten up and whatnot because of their religious beliefs. But that existed all throughout the Americas, and I guess if that happens for a long time, people start pulling in because they don't know
Yeah.
who to trust. They don't know who's genuine. So, in one hand,
Yes.
I do understand what you're saying about it's having a not so good side, in that people who want to know more and want to connect will have to go through a really tough journey to do that. But I do understand that it's also a kind of protective mechanism.
Protective. Yeah. Hmm.
Do you think that the consciousness um, related to blackness is rooted in uh, any of these traditional rituals, religions, spirituality, etc.? Because I'm just wondering about the folks who may not follow that path or may
Hmm.
not share in those beliefs.
Hmm.
What would they do?
Hmm. Well, I would answer that by saying, let's look at the three words that we use for Black Consciousness Festival: pride, power, and practice. We
Yes.
actually, the origins of those actually come out of the Black Consciousness movement, which was kind of championed by Steve Biko in South Africa.
Hmm.
And I think when he was thinking about what was essential to the Black Consciousness movement in that time, he
Hmm.
was also looking at what was common to a lot of indigenous African civilizations and culture. And when you think about it, pride, if you have pride in your culture, in where you come from, in the civilizations you come from, in your religious practices, right, then you're not going how you treat with it is going to be done in a particular way. Practice You know, how do you uphold your practices and ensure that you share it with the next generation, etc. And then the power, understanding the power that exists in all your practices and in having pride. Now, the question you asked about how do people that are not connected to African spiritual traditions get these things, pride, power, and practice? I don't know. I don't know that it is particularly connected to any religious practice, but I do think
Okay.
one has to understand where you come from. You have to understand, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you can't just be going forward from this point because as John was saying today, Erica, in the ancestral arithmetic, was it
Yes,
ancestral?
arithmetic. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When you count the amount of people it took for us to be here today, it's I think disrespectful to ignore what
Mm-hmm.
sustained them,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and and to just do away with it and not think about it. Whether you choose to
Mm-hmm.
practice it or not is one thing, but you have to acknowledge it. You have to understand it because it's what gave birth to you.
Yeah. And for me, it's always about respecting it because, as you say, you could decide not to practice. That's okay. But have
Mm-hmm.
respect for what, brought you here and what keeps you here.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things I like to think, it's in our DNA
Mm-hmm.
that there are some things we will do naturally that sometimes you don't even know why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are some of the, the traditions that if we were to sit still and we would have the conversations and to share, we might recognize that, you know what, we actually doing some African related things,
Yeah,
without even knowing. So
yeah,
yeah.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So what next? We finished. We talked about healing and reconnection over the last few years. And I get a sense that this theme resonated, so much with
Mm-hmm.
everyone who had to engage with it. So I feel as if, we, there's going to be ongoing discussions around the theme
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people who were in the conversations were like, we have to continue these discussions. It's not a one-off. It's not a 1 hour. It's an ongoing discussion, and that
Yeah.
keeps coming up there. The need for us to have conversations where we share, where we talk.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that so much information is provided,
Hmm.
and these spaces are offered, and hopefully, folks will turn to the person next to them wherever they are, right? So within their own community, within their own homes, schools, wherever, churches, wherever, that they would share the information, and they will, maybe be brave, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
and start up their own conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
we need it. So whether it is formally facilitated by the Black Consciousness Festival, or not, right? That folks will start having these conversations, right? That
Yeah.
they will do their own digging, their own research, um,
Hmm.
pick up some of the books that we've discussed, look at some
Hmm.
of the films that have been referenced,
Hmm.
and don't do it alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do it with
Yeah.
at least one other person, and you share with one another. Sometimes we're reluctant because we don't have a degree in something, right? Or, we didn't, go through some type of formal education about it. But what we're learning about is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And so,
Hmm.
oral history, you know, asking someone who is senior to you, what was it like when you were a teenager? What was it like when you were in your 20s? What was it like when you were in elementary school and so on? You know, what's the funniest story that you used to hear over and over again? You know, that is all a part of us learning more about ourselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And that is what the Black Consciousness Festival is about, right?
Yes.
It's just that. It's planting seeds and also watering them, right?
Yes.
And
Hmm.
providing this space for discussion, which provides healing for us.
And as you say in that, Janelle, Riesling sessions came up, Sean, or Rastafarian brethren.
Yeah.
Reasoning session. I know, Janelle. Look at Sean's face. I just had to put that in there. But, it's that idea of sitting and talking and sharing, those reasoning sessions. That is what they
Yes.
do.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about.
I
Yeah.
was talking to a friend of mine a few weeks ago, and I told him, I said, I don't know, it feels nerdy, right? But sometimes I just want to sit and just talk. I don't know what the topic is. You just want to sit with people and just reason.
Talk, share, reason, connect, reason. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that everything that everything that you share, I will necessarily agree with, right? But we
That's
don't have
fine.
to. But we don't even have to
That's
argue.
great. Yeah.
I'll just tell you my opposing view, and then we move on.
Mhm.
Because it may be that that's all we need to do, right? And at a later time, maybe I'll ponder something that you said to me, right?
Mhm.
And vice
Mhm.
versa. But all of that is just us connecting with each other, and that also helps to keep our humanity intact. Any society that you look at where folks are just walking past each other and not getting to stop and look at each other, right?
Mhm.
And ask that question. What was the question Sean talked about yesterday? And ask, so how are the children?
How are the children?
How
Yeah.
are the children?
How are
Yeah.
how's the family?
How is the
Not
family?
how are you? Because when you say how are you,
Yeah.
people, oh, I'm fine. No, you're not fine.
Yeah. No, you're not fine.
You
Yeah.
know, you can't be fine. World we
Yeah.
live in, you can't be fine. You're getting along, right? But we're not fine.
Yeah.
Not fine.
Yeah.
But just having the time and the opportunity to ask that question, we don't always have it. So it's creating those spaces
Yes.
to just sit back and just talk.
Yeah. And allowing people that space to deeply share that, what, I'm really not fine.
Yeah.
And, the space for that is being allowed. That's part of our healing because all of us living behind this mask, oh, I'm fine, I'm with it, I'm in control, I'm on top of it.
Right.
And it's really not that. So creating those spaces for those honest discussions.
That's
I
right.
could say, Janelle and Sean, I'm really not fine.
Yes.
And you to just hold my hand here for this moment, Yes.
Mhm. So where
So
do we
great.
go? Where do we
So
go?
where do we go?
Yeah.
Where do we go, Sean?
I don't know, but we've gone 52 minutes. That's what we've done.
You mean we talk for so long?
Yes, it was supposed to be a mini conversation, and it turned
A
out
mini
into a full conversation.
Well, we don't know about mini at all. My thing is don't give us
Clearly
time
not.
limits. We're going to
Clearly
flow.
not.
And it
That's a
comes
black
to
people
an
thing
end.
You
too,
can
right?
you can edit. You can edit if you
It's
so
live,
choose.
Ivo. It's live. It's live.
It's live, but certainly I think more conversations on healing and reconnection, over the
Yes.
next year. We are going to engage some more with those and,
Mhm.
continue to talk and to be for each other and to be sweet and magical and kind and loving and supportive and all of the things and joyous. All of the things we are as people of African descent.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes.
Some of us
Yes.
have to work on those things. For some
Yeah,
of
don't
us, that's
worry.
not easy.
We'll help you. We'll have a drumming session, and that drumming session will help all of us, Sean.
I hear you.
So yes, we'll work on it. So thank you so much for engaging in this mini conversation. I'm saying thank you in advance, but we're going to have Ruth and Perry and Baba sharing their beautiful music with us, that beautiful song, which is ours, See Them Come.
Yes.
So they're going to be sharing that for us. And then we'll have our closing libation. So again, on behalf of the team of the Black Consciousness Festival, thank you so much for this wonderful time, this wonderful sharing. Thank you for being with us and continue to walk in pride, power, practice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Woo! Yeah.
Hi, everyone. We're so happy to be here and to be part of the Black Consciousness Festival. I'm Ruth Osman, This is Mr. Theron Shaw and Baba Onilu. We're going to be doing a piece that was composed specifically for this festival by myself, arranged by Terry. It's called See Them Come. See them coming, running across the sand. Whirlwind rising, fire in their hands. See them shining, children of the sun. Hear them chanting, thunder of the drum. See them come from lakes and rivers, forests and plains. See them come, mountains, savannas from every land. See them come, farmers and warriors, poets and priests. See them come, I'm going to join them, come go with me. See that river glinting in the green. Silent canoes slipping up the stream. Someone whistles, someone answers low. Scarlet feathers catch the sunset's glow. See them come from lakes and rivers, forests and plains. See them come, mountains, savannas from every
Thank you again, Ruth, Terran, and Baba. It's always a privilege and such an honor to see you and to hear your talent. And now we'll have our closing libation done by Adeola. And Adeola, we thank you again for being with us, for supporting us. And thank you.
Yemanja 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 baniti monda ile Yemanja 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 baniti monda ile Yemanja 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 baniti mona ile Yemanja Yemanja With the spirit of awakening, resistance and rebellion, voices of freedom, love and consciousness. May the ancestors bless all of us as a people together, far and wide, across lands and seas. And may the power of our ancestors bind us together by virtue of the sacrifices they made for us all and for humanity. The Black Consciousness Festival. May the universe now grant a special blessing to the members of the steering committee of the festival. May we forever stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. It is done. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. And we give thanks to the Creator, the Master of the universe. We say thank you to all our positive ancestors. We say thanks.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Be good to yourselves.